asked to share your many, many years of great shamanic wisdom. You've healed so many people and created such beautiful sacred space for other people to find themselves and connect with their higher selves, connect with their soul, and release a lot of trauma. I really want to start off by just giving everybody an understanding of what soul retrieval is. What does it mean for the layperson out there?
When we talk about soul retrieval, in the shamanic tradition, they believe that when we experience trauma, a part of the soul goes into hiding.
Mm.
Now, it's interesting chatting to a psychologist because he was saying the trauma stays buried until we are ready to deal with it. And the same applies to soul retrieval.
Okay.
But that part of soul doesn't say to you, hey, we've got to go back and explore that car accident you had. It's time now to go into therapy. What it does is it starts giving one signals.
Okay.
We may start feeling anxious. Suddenly depression may appear out of nowhere for no real reason. We may find that we're unable to concentrate. And we lose focus of our lives. And a typical example of soul loss is when a woman will say, I've never been the same since I lost my husband, or since the car accident,
Yes.
Or another kind of trauma. People start feeling that they're not whole and that something is missing.
Yes.
And that their body is trying to tell them by developing all kinds of aches and pains that for which there's no real reason.
Really did resonate what you said about the splitting of the soul and almost a part of yourself wanting to go into hiding to recover that. It's such a, the energy of that sensation definitely feels like a fracturing, like a disintegration, like a brokenness. And you often hear people saying things like, I feel broken, I feel lost. Very much with death. I find that so true, that people go through such trauma when they lose a loved one that they sometimes almost want to partially go with that loved one.
I agree with you.
Yes, that they would let a piece of themselves move along into the other realm with the soul that has departed.
Yes.
Even though that's not meant to be their place, they've obviously still chosen to be in this realm and to continue. So how does one, after any traumatic event, I know even for instance with sexual abuse, the fear and the terror of having anything violent like that's happening to you can be such a triggering event for that soul splitting. And it is very much, I find, really almost a genius way of protecting the energy of the soul, in a sense. I mean, there's so much science and method behind why this would happen in the first place, to protect you from such a traumatic event that you would lift out of your body and almost witness this trauma. I know in hypnotherapy, you can even go back and visually see that trauma. And it's interesting in hypnotherapy as well. Some experiences I've had of it is that you can literally watch yourself in that traumatic experience, not as the person going through the trauma, but as an observer where you are watching it from the outside happen to you. And so you have to ask the question, what part of yourself is up there, out of the body, observing this traumatic thing that's happening to you? Explains it quite aptly.
And it's interesting that you mention something like sexual abuse. In shamanism, we believe that there are three worlds: the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. So basically, the upper world is the conscious mind. The middle world is reality as we see it now. And the lower world is the subconscious mind. And this question of, I can say, the soul protecting itself by disassociating from an awful experience, generally with women who've been through that, the soul escapes to the upper world. That innocent part is lost. And then it goes to, I love that saying, where life is beautiful all the time. And to do a soul retrieval for somebody who's been through an awful experience like that, you have to actually coax that innocent part to come back and to enter into dialogue with it. Because where it is, it's absolutely safe. And it's not really worried about its owner managing perfectly well, thank you.
Absolutely. The upper realm is divine.
Yes, why should I come back? And unless that person's life has changed, and she's in a loving, safe environment, and perhaps even in a loving relationship, or has wonderful support, the soul won't be in a hurry to come back. You actually have to persuade that part of the soul that its owner is really lost without her. And it's okay to come back now because, look, the owner is in a beautiful home, in a safe environment. She's got a loving husband, and she will make sure that no one will ever hurt you like that again. And it's almost like the little soul in the upper world comes and checks everything out, trying to decide whether or not it's coming back.
Shadow work and inner child work can be so helpful to regain contact with that lost aspect of the self. Tell me more about how you would get that very content girl in the upper realm to come back down into this messy place of darkness and light.
With love. With love. And normally one has to, at the spiritual level, when you're in the upper world, barter with the soul and say, what do you want?
Yes.
In order to come back.
Yes. And
whatever the soul asks for, it's interesting. I was working with somebody this week, and in a similar situation, and the little soul said she must buy herself a baby doll or a teddy bear or something. And I'll come back and I'll go back into the heart center. But I want her to hold this baby doll and talk to it as though she's reassuring the inner child and tell it nobody's going to hurt you anymore.
Yes.
And I want her to hold me and to look after me the way she would a very precious only child, so that I can feel safe enough to come back and to stay.
Yes.
The big thing is the soul part must stay, want to stay. And then by nurturing the doll or the fluffy toy and holding it close to the heart center, what the person is doing is actually reconnecting with her soul, with her heart.
Yes.
And learning to love that part of her that was lost and to call back the innocence she lost by symbolically holding a baby doll, which is symbolic of a brand new beginning.
Yes. That's
working on yourself and developing sufficient self-love. The soul coming back is part of the process. And sometimes we don't realize that we actually are suffering from soul loss.
Yes.
If I may just give you an example.
Absolutely.
My father took his own life. And shortly after that, my three brothers did the same thing.